Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. This is Winthrop Town Council, and we're looking at January 15th, 2026, 6 p.m., and we'll start the meeting now. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So you all join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag. One. So thank you. We have almost a full panel for council. We have Linda Caprera, she's via Zoom, and Andy West is absent. So we'll start off with the first order of business is a public comment. Anybody would like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium and say you at will. All right, hearing or seeing none online? Great. We'll move on. You good? Okay. Items 009, it's a public hearing, it's proposed residential care facilities moratorium ordinance. I'll open the conversation for to the public. Any questions on this topic?
Mr. Chair, would you like me just to make a brief comment about why
Would love it.
council's considering this at this time?
That'd be great.
So, as most folks here in Winthrop know, we do have a large recovery home that located in a former nursing home. We have another nursing home that is currently vacant, and we've already had some interest expressed by someone about starting a drug rehabilitation facility in that. And our town planner, working with our planning board, has determined that maybe we need some better definitions of some different uses and some adjustments to the land use table. And so, while the planning board engages in that work, we thought it might be a good idea to have a moratorium on group residential facilities, just so that the planning board can complete its work, the ordinance can hopefully be amended to reflect the necessary changes, and then we can start accepting any applications that we might get at that point. So as part of the process, we wanted to obviously hear from the public, and at the same time, I think the planning board is going to be looking for some direction from the council about what you're hoping to accomplish with any sort of amendment to the zoning ordinance.
So I'll go back to any public comment. Council have anything to say about it? Okay. All right. We'll close that item. We'll open up items 010, consideration of a proposed residential care facilities moratorium ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
All right. So any discussion from the table again from here from the council?
Is there a date range or?
Yes. So the moratorium, we did at the council's request make this retroactive to January the 1st. Like all of our ordinances, it still would not officially take effect for 30 days, but it's going to be retroactive to January 1st. So anything that we might receive within the next 30 days would still be subject to the moratorium. The moratorium is for 180 days. And if the planning board has not completed its work during that time, it can be extended for another 180 days. So you're looking at potentially a year before you folks may be looking at amending the ordinance.
Can I ask our town planner to kind of give us a breakdown of what you might have in mind as far as where our land use or zoning could be more specific, or what it is that we're trying to achieve?
So currently we have definitions for commercial uses that are low, medium, and high. And there are some specific parameters regarding hours, how many employees that determine when a use comes in, what level of intensity that development is considered. And we do have some definitions for specific uses. So in this instance, I think it would be prudent for us to come up with some definitions of these types of uses specific and then apply those to the use table.
And is there a way that we can craft language that would address the impact? So in an application for a facility of this nature, where they would have to present to the planning board an impact on our services, A, general assistance, B, EMS, police, all of those things. Is there a way to incorporate that into this process?
The board they can set up some design guidelines and performance standards specific to whatever this use might be, and there may be multiple uses that they define. And they can set that up and indicate what types of information will be required to be submitted. If the solar ordinance, being an example, is it states what's required to be submitted with an application. And there are 3 planning board members here tonight. I just want to note that because I did ask if they could participate because we all want to be very clear on what our directive is from the town council. So that is a summary of where I'm at in terms of what I understand the council is looking for. But if the planning board has other ideas or concerns that they want to raise, so we're all clear, I just want to bring that point up.
Thank you.
I was just going to say that I would certainly want, moving forward, this process to encompass in the application process or fact-finding some type of analysis, how it would impact town services, impact economic development too.
Anybody else?
No, I'm in favor of this. I think that it's important to make sure that this is aligned with our comprehensive plan. And I think that our comprehensive plan, definitely outlines a need for residential care facilities, especially focused on our elderly population. So anything that can outline and define what that looks like, and anything with, also populations with cognitive disabilities or other considerations and along those lines.
Noted.
Would an ordinance like this or zoning changes like this, would that be specific to the number of units or residents? I mean, the language can be tailored to the amount of residents in the establishment, correct?
That is one criteria that could be considered.
Yeah, the one thing that I did learn after being on the council for a little bit, as the lawyers told us, it's our ordinance. And we can pretty much tailor it to how we like. So if you guys want to offer some suggestions and let the guys kind of take a stab at it, it was really what I kind of would like to do is have them, give them some direction, what we're looking for. Let them take a stab at it and let's review it. And then give them a couple of meetings.
And to Shannon's point, the attorney also suggests that we sort of cast a wide net with this. So we're not looking at a specific sort of use for a group residential facility, but all group residential facilities. And so that could incorporate any number of different niches, if you will.
Yeah. All right. So let's, we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. So all in favor? Linda? Okay,
Yes.
6-0, so unanimous. Thank you. Moving on. What we're looking at.
Yeah, so we also put on the agenda the opportunity to waive the second reading because this is an ordinance, and of course, ordinances require 2 readings.
Okay.
Oh, we waive the second reading.
Second, yeah.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor. Thank you. All right. So let's going to jump down to items 011, public hearing on proposed utility scale solar facilities moratorium ordinance. Open the discussion for the public and the council.
I have comments.
Go ahead, Zach.
I'll preface this with that I'm a senior electrical engineer for a power company, so I'm pretty familiar with these things. And after looking over our ordinance, there's a lot of holes in it, in my opinion. And so I think we need to really consider making this a much more technical document for multiple reasons. And one, I don't think we define the industrial level items that we need to address in the ordinance. And furthermore, there are many unknowns with these sites and things that aren't as regulated as they are with the utility substation. So there's a lot of impacts that are unknown to the public when it comes to electrical grid upgrades. And right now in the state, they don't, I don't believe, and I'm pretty certain about it, that they consider the panels impermeable area, but they do for a roof. And that changes runoff, and where we're 17% water from an area standpoint, I think we need to consider setbacks to water bodies where these solar sites are, which is important for the longevity of our water bodies. Additionally, with these farms and stuff, depending on the megawatt quantity, you have trace short circuits, and there's, basically faults that can happen. Those things can cause outages, and there's a lot of maintenance. So it's more than just a construction issue when it comes to preventing runoff. There's roadways here. There's active construction always happening on an active solar site. And then there's in-ground impacts for grounding to make it safe. So there's touch and step potentials that can be a risk for people walking around the areas that can be that can kill someone. And there's stories that happen when power lines go down. So my point being really here is that we need to make a very technical ordinance in order to provide the well-being of the citizens and the safety of the citizens. And some things I'd like to see our town manager provided a ordinance from a different town, Belgrade's, and it lists 17 items with multiple subsets, requiring a lot of technical documents. And so I want to see that in ours too. So I'd like to see Power 1 lines, Area 1 lines, substation plans, right-of-way center lines, basically all the plans for the site work, and et cetera, right? And that's mostly to make it so this is an industrial item here. This is not like it's, someone building a garage in their backyard. It's an industrial site that has a lot of impact, and we need to make sure that we're the last line of defense, right? Because the state doesn't regulate it as much as maybe they should. And we can here in the town level, and we need to. So that's my 2 cents. And I have a lot of suggestions that I'll share with Anthony that I have written out, but I wanted to publicly say that, I'm in support of the moratorium, and I think we really need to spend a lot of time making this a good document. So thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Hold on, Linda. I'm going to let Aaron go first, and then you can go.
Okay.
So I've definitely mulled this around a lot in my head, and I've gone back and forth and back and forth. And I went over other ordinances, and I mean, I do find that, we probably do need a little bit more of a comprehensive approach, but there's also a lot of questions I have with our existing ordinance and whether it be enforcement or how are we ensuring that it's being adhered to, including, I believe and I'll probably ask some members of the planning board to speak to this, but I believe there is we require that the outfit put money aside for any potential cleanup should the property get abandoned. And so that's obviously an important piece, but how do we know that's being done? And maybe one of you guys could maybe Anthony can, I'm not sure. That's just one item of concern. The second is I am not a big proponent of government necessarily being overly restrictive in the sense in removing economic potential gains for whether it's business, landowners, whatnot. So I do want to be careful in not drafting an ordinance that is so burdensome that it is becomes a hindrance to development. I know Central Maine Power has addressed a lot of and is currently addressing their capacity issues, constantly updating and upgrading their infrastructure, including here in Winthrop, which you've seen a lot of that work on 202. So I do think I would be curious to know if the technical side, with some of their permitting, I would want to know what their permitting process entails. And when they say yes, what do we know that has been approved? And were they provided the schematics that showed, safety, grounding, what happens if, there's a failure, all those things. And then I would also, maybe one of the planning board members could elaborate on this too, is our fire chief involved with any of those plans as well? If someone can answer that.
So
So thanks, counselors. I'm Greg Stewart. I am a planning board member and I drafted the solar ordinance. So to cover a couple of Zachary's points as well as your points, Aaron, from Zachary's standpoint, we're not allowed to change the standing of a solar panel. The state ordinance is very clear that you're not allowed to call them an impervious surface. I understand it's a big flat panel that rain can't fall through. I don't understand their definition, but they told us you can. Secondly, your concerns about the electrical safety, very valid points. We made a decision very early on to remove that technical side because it's in the state ordinance and we don't understand it. We don't know, and they have to follow the state ordinance as well as ourselves. So we felt like that was our protection, was the state ordinance. And the problem was the state ordinance at that time was changing almost every 6 months, and I'm sure it's changed since we wrote ours. And we felt like we couldn't keep up with the constant changes that they're going to have, and we didn't want to contradict them. We didn't want to allow something that was unsafe. So that was a conscious choice we made not to get too technical on that piece. Not saying it was the right choice. That was the choice we made at the time. Some of the other questions that have been asked, the fire chief is required to sign off on our plans. So that is a mandatory requirement. So as far as enforcement, my understanding is the town code officer is the only enforcement entity, not us. So if somebody's building one of these facilities and we approved a plan and they change or do something against that, there's nothing we can do. So we can obviously point it out to the code officer if we drive by, but that's all we can do. The money that's held, so we make an evaluation. The state has a table. So I'm a civil engineer. I kind of land in a different world, and we required them to get several quotes from actual contractors and not use the state table, the last few that once we put the ordinance in place. So, and what that does is change the amount of money that's required. So it's probably between 2.5 to 3 times more, the last 2 that we did, than the state table. And that money gets held by the town. We have the choice of having the state hold it or the town hold it. We chose to have the town hold it because Don said we have the capacity to do that. So we're like, sure. Every 5 years, that amount is reevaluated. So it has an inflator every year, but every 5 years we can go and reevaluate if that solar's in place. So I feel like that one piece of the ordinance very well protects the town because we got quotes from actual builders, local builders, to actually what it would cost to remediate the site. And then on top of that, we made sure there was enough money, and then there's an inflator, and then every 5 years we can reevaluate if costs have changed substantially. I think that addresses, at least responds to you, but you can call me back or ask me something else if you want.
I'm going to let Linda go, but thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Linda, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with Zach. I think we need to step back and see exactly, what we have and how we want to go forward. My question is, how many solar farms do we have in the town? Anthony, do you know?
I do. Since this ordinance went into effect, we've had 6 permits approved.
6 permits?
6 permits in approximately 2+ years.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know how many of those are complete. I think there may be only, and the folks from the planning board may know more about this than I do. I think there's only 1 that is incomplete. Am I wrong about that? Do you fellas know? Okay. Okay, so Linda, to your question, 5 solar farms before the ordinance took effect, 6 have been approved, and 3 of those are still under construction.
So a total of 8,
11.
11?
11 approved,
Okay.
and probably 8 in production.
Well, 5 were approved before the
Correct.
ordinance went into effect.
But just as a whole for the town, I think, is that your question, Linda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Roy?
So, I don't understand everything quite as much as Zach does, but what I do understand is that stuff has changed a lot in the last 2 years. And I've had a lot of discussions on this with constituents out in the community, and one of the big things is just the visual appearance of it. Everywhere you turn, there's big solar fields everywhere. And there's been a lot of complaints about the aesthetics. Is there anything in the current ordinance about aesthetics?
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, there's 2 requirements. Well, there's actually 3 requirements now. We do what's called a view shed analysis. So it's to actually try to figure out where you can see the solar facility. The second thing is we were the first ones in the state to include a required vegetated buffer zone. So you shouldn't be able to see any of the new solar farms at all, or very, very limited. So it's required that it's a 50-foot buffer. They're not allowed to cut anything below 25 feet tall, and the height limitation, the panels have to be lower than 25 feet. And if they don't have conifers, they have to plant them. So that's a requirement in the ordinance. There are 5 solar farms in Winthrop that were approved before the ordinance was put in place. So the one right across from Charlie's, Chevy, that was put in place before. So they got approved, and then we put the moratorium in place, and then it was put forth. So there's 3 factors. There's a vegetated buffer zone, there's a view shed analysis, and the third one was visual impacts to the community. It's specifically listed in the ordinance with the idea that if people are coming in saying, I don't want that in my backyard, and it's going to impact their residential type zone or area, they can speak to that directly.
I know it's a commercial zone, but the one that's obviously going in right now across from the vet clinic on 202, was that before or after? Was that approved before or after?
That was after, and they're required to have a 50-foot budget, of 50-foot vegetated
So before
buffer
they're
zone.
done, they're gonna plant,
They're not supposed to cut it at all.
they've got
Just
it
so you
wiped
know.
right out to the highway.
They're not supposed to cut it at all. We don't have enforcement power.
So who has enforcement power?
That's code enforcement officer. I'll shut it down before we get too far into this, but thank you,
Right.
Greg. So very well done.
Okay.
So,
One more, Pete.
go ahead.
So the other concern that I have is the discussion we've had multiple times about open space. And we've got a lot of people pushing for some, as much open space as we can get in the community, but we're burning it all up as solar fields. And a lot of the open space that's already cleared, whether it be fields, whether it be
It's valid.
potential agricultural area. I mean, we've had the discussion about following more closely what's desired in the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
That's just a big concern of mine and many people that I've talked to.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Zach?
So I did want to say that the setback thing is something really good in the ordinance. So I do want to note that because I think that's important. And I'm actually involved on the other side of the house often and sometimes don't have that. And there's a lot of impact. And I know we can't regulate. I just want to clarify. I know we can't regulate like a lot of the electrical requirements. There's a lot of things that happen way before this. But what I do think we need to add, and I just want to clarify it, is that we should make whoever wants to provide detailed technical documentation to basically make it so that we're seeing all the level of impact. And that's what I saw from the other ordinance that were shared with me. And I think it's important when towns do have that because it does force all the thought process to take place beforehand. So developing, 30% design plans is crucial to make sure that they're accounting for everything. And basically you can identify maybe any issues that would occur later. So that's really what it was. And I didn't want to, I wanted to clarify before I said any more. So thank you again. So.
And Shannon?
So as Zach had mentioned earlier with the more technical specs, I think on some of these, just in defining the size, I know that there's some measurements by kilowatts and more technical numbers and things that I don't necessarily know. But I have looked at some other ordinances and I have noticed that those are a little bit more definitive and that there are also fee schedules based off of those sizes. I did not see a fee schedule included in ours, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there. I just didn't see it online. And then any indicator of setbacks for public utilities. I know that there are some that may be along the water utilities district pipelines. If there's something that might inhibit those lines, that would be taken into consideration. As mentioned with the residential care facilities, I think that it's important to identify some of those locations that align with our comprehensive plan. And then if there are any kind of leased land agreements, maybe something like that, and getting a copy of that as part of the permitting application. And then also an emergency management plan and stormwater management plan. I know we have a lot of significant assets around our town, and identifying that according to our zoning maps and our shoreland and our shoreland primarily, and then the what's the next shoreland? Like
Water,
the special-
water resource.
Water resource protection. Thank you. So making sure that we identify any mitigation efforts for those protected areas that we have in our town. I think that that's important. I mean, just defining, I think, a little bit more, I think is important. So, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to note that a lot of the concerns that are being raised, aesthetics, open space plan, runoff, things like that, I think those are all things that can be addressed with just some really robust regulations. And you've seen that in some of the other ordinances. And to Greg's point, I think it's a fair point to make, is that it's really hard if you get some technical plans in for lay people to figure out exactly what that means. But I shared with you guys an ordinance, and I don't know if it's been shared yet with the planning board, but we can do that, is that I'm aware of at least one other ordinance where the town has the option of hiring experts to analyze those plans at the contractor's cost. So the person is working for the town, but the contractor is footing the bill. So I think that's one way to address one of the concerns that's been raised here tonight.
Thank you, Anthony. Very good points. Did you want to say something?
So Anthony, just to piggyback on that, I also was wondering if that could include an independent monitoring service throughout the project, after the project, that can come back and then report to the planning board how things are going, because I'm not sure we have the bandwidth within just our code enforcement officer. I'm not sure if that is a fair request. I mean, yes, certain things, but I would think that we would want information throughout the entire process. And I would, at their cost, clearly, if this is going to be a big project, but I think we
did that with the gravel.
We have such a fragile ecosystem in Winthrop that is unique to Winthrop, with all the bodies of water, concerns with the land that we have. We don't necessarily know in how many years, say, after one of the solar fields gets decommissioned, is that land no longer going to be available for agriculture? Is there a PFAS issue concern? These are things that I think we need to answer before we just allow things to continue as is. Don, did you want to speak to that?
Well, I just wanted to speak to some of it in terms of
One more
the
thing.
planning board currently has the ability to have a peer review. So the applicant has, electrical engineer, and the board says, we don't really understand this. They can hire just what you're saying. They work for the town and they do a peer review of whatever's submitted to the board. That's an option now, but it's also something that could be highlighted and spelled out more clearly. And also third-party inspectors is common as well.
That's
So
what I was going to say. If you're building a 24 by 48 house, you have a third-party inspector over there every 2 weeks. That's minimal ground disturbance compared to, the size of the solar fields going in. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I agree with you, and it's very common practice as well.
Okay. And the only other thing I would say when we make these decisions to get as much information possible is, do we know what type of economic impact these have had as far as tax revenue for the town and potential generation for those developers?
I am certainly not expert at that. I do recall hearing and reading that because there were some tax breaks for these sort of developments initially, and Zach, please jump in here at any point if you want, that initially they weren't really generating a whole lot of property tax revenue unless it was like a huge farm like up in Farmington. Whether or not that has changed, I'm not sure. I mean, there definitely is some property tax revenue that would be generated, but I don't know that it's significant.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question. So if there's a solar farm out there now that is not meeting, potentially some of the minimum standards, our code enforcement officer can go and talk to them.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Get a comment from the audience.
I am Sandy Steele. So I have a quick question. Listening to the conversation, we're creating an ordinance. We have one in place that people are following. Is there anything in the ordinance that states if they break the rules, what happens?
It is a code violation of the ordinance, and they could either, there's many options, and I don't want to state them because I don't know really what the ramifications are, but there are something, and it sounds from what we're hearing tonight,
Right.
that could be looked
My
into.
concerns is we're sitting here spending all this time, and anybody that travels 202 by the vet daily or
Yeah.
not daily sees that they have been clearing
I
that
think
whole
that's-
thing on a regular basis.
I think it's
No
probably why
one-
we're looking at it now.
So why are we doing this if no one's going to follow up and make
Well,
them?
I
Is
think
it
we're
nip it in the bud if they break the rules?
we're going to.
Like,
Yeah,
What-
does the ordinance say anything right now about that?
Saying they
the
can't
intent
enforce
to
it. They
address that.
No, I'm not saying enforce it. I'm asking if the current ordinance addresses that.
It has regulations in there of what they have to follow, and if they're not following it, they're in violation of the ordinance, and the code enforcement officer will handle that.
Okay.
So those are civil penalties, and I think what the council is looking to achieve is just some stronger regulations on the front end so that we ensure that, again, we've got robust regulations that a contractor is going to have, those are hurdles they're going to have to clear in order to even get the permit in order to build the solar
I
development.
think Sandy's point is they're going to be enforced.
Oh,
You
there's
can
no
beat them,
doubt.
But they're
Yeah.
going to be enforced.
There's no
Well,
doubt.
can
That's
I,
true.
to what Sandy said, and here's my other point that I just made. If land is cleared and there's no room for hiding or whatever you want to call it aesthetically, this type of farm, what happens when, things are starting to be built and there's no buffer? I mean, what happens if there's no buffer and you can see clearly any type of farm that is being built? What then? I mean, you're saying there's civil penalties, but I guess the question remains is, what happens then? Are you stuck with the aesthetics, or what's going on here? Is there any way to, how is that going to be remedied, I guess?
So it's not unusual if that sort of provision is not adhered to for the town to go and enforce the contractor to add the buffers if it's been cleared. So if that's in fact the case, that's probably what we're looking at. There may be some civil penalties involved, but at the same time, the project would have to add that vegetation or fencing or whatever it is in order to recreate the buffer.
And if I'm not misspoken, I think you can put a halt to the project until remedies are made appropriate.
I am not an attorney, but
Nor am I, but I
yeah.
think we did something similar to when we put our gravel ordinance and we stopped doing everything right now because of that was in place. But Shannon's got to speak towards it.
An example from another ordinance, so maybe this could be included in this as well, the enforcement and violations and penalties section. So this ordinance shall be enforced by the CEO or their designee. Violation of the ordinance shall be subject to the enforcement and penalty provisions of 30 AMRS 4452, enforcement of zoning laws and ordinances. So just having that provision in there, I think is important to add.
Thank you. I think Aaron just asked me another quick question too, and I would like to present it to the planning board. If we find somebody in violation, can we add it to the ordinance that they would have to come back to the planning board to have it reviewed again, to have the analysis be done of the project anyway?
So generally what happens is an applicant has an approval from the planning board with or without conditions, and what they have submitted to the board is what they are allowed to build.
Sure.
So if they do something different, whether it's clearing existing vegetation or, building the parking lot bigger than it's supposed to, or drainage issues, they have to, it's an enforcement issue, and the code enforcement officer works with them to make sure it comes into compliance. If they want to change what was approved, if they get out in the field and, it's not being built in accordance with the plan, but in fact, there's a better design, they need to come back to the planning board for an amendment.
Yep.
So that's usually how it works. It's either a violation and the code enforcement officer works with them, or they can come back to the planning board and do something different.
So basically, they'll have to undo what they've done that's in violation and go back to their plan, or if they would like to modify their plan, it comes back to the planning board.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything
Okay.
else? Good, Linda? Sandy,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm just gonna ask a couple quick questions I wrote down here really quick. I did read in the ordinance myself, so the ones that you proposed to us, Anthony. We've went down this road a little bit. I saw cost for permitting. And one of them, it was quite a big cost for permitting. I think one down, if you went to so many kilowatts, I think it was up to $2,500. And I know we were in that when we had the marijuana in town, that we couldn't only charge up to what it costs us to manage it. Does this fall out of that because we're going to have the code enforcement officer has to go there and do so many site visits or to look this over? Or how do we get away from with that?
So as with all fees, the goal is cost recovery. It's not to make money, it's to recover cost. When you're talking about a project that would be as complex as a solar development, it's going to take a lot more of the town planner's time, a lot more of the code enforcement officer's time, a lot more of the planning board's time. Have to get the attorney involved. And so it would not be unreasonable for us to charge something far more than $25 or what we would normally charge for a building permit fee for a project such as this.
Okay, so that satisfies my question. I got one more point I want to ask, and this is probably really bad thing to say and probably get hunted down on this one, but after hearing that we already have or potentially have 11 solar farms in this town and are going to what I think Roy made the point and a few other people have made the point of having green space and wanting to be able to have X here in our beautiful community, can we at some point say we have enough? And if we have 1D commissions, then we can actually get in line. And then, and then we can now up to, have up to that. We've maxed out. I mean, I think that would be in my brain saying simple, but is it legally, is it just, can we do that? So
you can do that, but it can be questioned legally. So it depends on what the town attorney who has to defend you would advise. I'm going to put a little plug for the open space plan here because that can help direct when the planning board's saying where are these appropriate to go and where, you've already identified areas where
Right.
they shouldn't go. So just a little plug for that. One of the things that can be done, and it's really in keeping with what you're already talking about, but soils regarding agriculture. You could have them submit more information on soils, you have a peer review of that. To help determine appropriate location. But my understanding is that's part of what you're asking the planning board to look at, to evaluate is where they should go.
Yeah,
Is that
and
correct?
it's really like a capacity too. I mean, we have so many acres in town, right? And, how much do we want it covered? I mean, everybody just put up and say, hey, let's just start rolling with it. And, the whole town of Winthrop's a solar field. But I mean, I'm not opposed to somebody doing something with their property. I just, enough is, at what point can we say that we, correct, thank you. I was looking for a word, but thank you, Roy.
Hey, Anthony,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
can you get a legal opinion on that from our attorneys?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Just so you know, when we wrote the ordinance, we got a legal opinion and they said no.
Yeah.
That's why the
I
ordinance is
think I remember
exactly the
that
way
too,
that
right?
it
I
is.
just was kind of,
I just wanted to.
and as you said, things are changing so quickly with this. In the review of this, I think now is probably timely, and I don't think that was probably the end of it. I think we'll probably be looking at it down the road as well. So, but
And I wanted to answer at least the tax question.
yes, go ahead.
So the tax question is very clearly laid out by the state law. They tax it at a little bit less than farmland.
Okay.
So no, the town does not do well on taxes.
Okay.
And there's nothing we can do about it. We asked the town attorney, we were told, you have to follow the state for this.
Great.
So
Thank you for answering
So
that.
you said that legally we cannot limit it?
At the time when we wrote the ordinance, we were told that we cannot say you cannot have solar farms.
That's been a while.
You have to make it legally allowable.
Oh, and that is for sure true. But I think, Greg, the distinction is, can you limit the number of permits that
That's
you issue?
possible. That's
Yeah,
possible.
and I do think that's a possibility because I am aware that some communities also
Thank you.
do that with cannabis. Like they're only going to issue a certain.
We do
number-
it with we did it with cannabis, correct?
We did it one time, Linda, but I think we've now opened it up. We made it a free market.
Yeah,
Right, but I'm saying is we did it at one time.
Yes, we did.
but to Greg's point, because I know the question is going to come up, can you outlaw them essentially?
Yeah, and that
And-
wasn't really my question.
Yeah.
It was just the number of.
Yeah, but
Staffing.
he's perfectly correct in that if it's a legal business, you can't keep it from occurring in your community. You have to provide some place or guidelines for it to occur. And so the trick here is just to make it as robust as the regulations need to be in order to ensure you're not awash in whatever the activity is.
Sandy, hold on.
Right, I just wanted to clarify what he was saying.
So, okay, there were a couple other points or clarifications that I was looking for. One is, and maybe the planning board can speak to this, the capacity. And I had concerns back in 2023 when we were drafting the original ordinance, is I know limiting capacity, a lot of that had been, it wasn't available because there wasn't enough infrastructure through the utility. But since that is upgraded, my other concern was including, like, if a individual resident wanted to put a solar panel on their house, there were times where
That's not
The-
included in this,
That's
is my
not included in
understanding.
this at all.
no, but the problem is that if a solar field comes up on a certain line, the capacity could be used up to 100%, which then makes it so individual households cannot then get the benefit of
their own.
having their own solar, and if the credits are still available. And I believe they still are, that they can sell it back to the grid. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we would be removing the financial or economic gains to individual households if we allowed a certain residential line get used 100% by
A
a
farm.
commercial solar field. So had always wanted to say, I wanted to preserve a certain percentage, and I know this would require feedback from Central Maine Power and their distribution engineering department. But I would like to have this drafted in an aspect that preserves some bandwidth for individual households.
See where you were going with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Don, you want to answer that?
Well, actually, I apologize because I can't answer that question, but it did flag. I just want to be clear and have on the record, this is not intended, the moratorium, to apply to residential uses.
Right.
So if you're wanting.
Right.
Yeah, we knew that.
Okay, so, yeah, I just wanted to be on the record. Someone had asked that question and it is
No,
ambiguous, so.
I knew that answer, but thank you for clarifying it. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So when they get their CMP permit, they're not allowed to use 100% of the capacity is our understanding. That's a state requirement. Now, that does not say that that couldn't change over time, or even the possible they change over the panels, they make changes to the systems, but they're not allowed to get a CMP permit if they use 100% of the capacity of the system that's in place. They're not allowed to.
So Greg, can I ask you one quick question on
Yes.
that? So with that, and learning on ordinances, and I learned along the way, it's our ordinance, we can write it we want, and we can make it stronger than the state's
We
requirement.
absolutely could.
So if we wanted to be a higher standard on the percentages, we could do that on this, saying, we're only gonna let you have 50%. I know CMP is gonna say you can have X, but we're gonna let you have half that.
Yep.
So we could put those provisions in our ordinance.
Right, and I would
Okay.
think that would be along the lines of the requirement of having a technical expert review it,
Yep.
make sure the capacity was there.
Yep.
So that, I've already written it down, so.
Thank you.
If you go there, that's
Yeah,
the plan.
That's where you're going. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
It's me again.
Hi.
Sandy Steele. So I have a question. We're talking about how we can't, and I may be misunderstood, so if someone can correct me and make this clear.
I would never do that.
We are saying, this is the first, we are saying that we can't tell someone they can't have solar panels. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're not saying that.
Okay, so what was the last part of that conversation about? Like, not just recently, but when we were saying that you can't stop someone.
We can't, go ahead.
Yeah,
go
so,
ahead.
so are you talking about residential or commercial?
I'm talking about solar farms and
So like a utility level solar farm, they have the right to generate power and the utility has to allow them to, as long as they go through the ISO and all these steps and the town permitting process, they follow state regulations, they're entitled to generate power to put to the grid.
So when they come here, are they entitled to be able to do
They're
it
not
here?
entitled, they're entitled to follow our ordinance based on what our planning board
Yes.
follows that procedure.
This is my question. We tell people in town, you can't have chickens because you're not zoned for it. Like you can't do this or you can't build that because there's not enough impervious space, or if you use too much. I mean, there's a rule for everything.
Sure,
So why is this any different?
It's not, Sandy.
it's not.
So I'm going to use a different analogy.
I love it.
A lot of communities, including Winthrop, have ordinances for sexually oriented businesses. Some people might call these gentlemen clubs, although I don't think there are very many gentlemen in there.
No, probably not.
And so the reason for that is that is a lawful business, and ergo, a community can't prevent a lawful business from doing business in the community. But what they can do is they can set up some guidelines for where they can occur. And so that's why you don't see sexually oriented businesses anywhere in the vicinity of schools or churches. I mean, they're usually in industrial zones.
How
And
is can you explain to me when you say, how is a solar farm a business? It's a business for
Well-
just the landowner.
Well, no, it's not because these people generating power, they're getting kilowatt hours, right? They're generating revenue. So it's a business and you can't prevent a business from acting, but what you can do is put guardrails on it to make sure that that doesn't infringe on like the community, right? And that's what we're suggesting here is that people have the right to put in solar farms, but we just need to make sure that they're doing it the right way. And that's all we're advocating for here.
Okay,
So,
in your point, people have the right to put up a gentleman's club, but it has to be in our guidelines.
correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
just checking.
Yeah.
You opening up one? Okay. Sure. Just checking. Dawn?
Just going back to the question I had about residential versus commercial, I don't know if there's any formal action that needs to be taken because the posted ordinance it covers both. So if there's a formal action that needs to be taken to amend that, so that the moratorium covers commercial only, I guess I'm asking point of order if that's,
Yeah, I don't think we're touching anything that's residential right here. This is basically for commercial. It's all.
so if someone comes to Mark tomorrow to get solar panels for their house.
The roof, yep.
Well, the way the ordinance is written, I don't think that he would be able to do that.
We went through this prior to some of you folks coming on, and we had somebody come up and we talked about that, and it flew by and it was fine because it wasn't. And I think Mark was here talking about it, and a gentleman lived it on Main Street, and he was perfectly fine in putting on his roof and doing so. So
I just want to try to avoid unintended consequences. So
Saying.
Doesn't say.
But it says utility grade on ours, right? Like,
yes,
on our ordinance, I can't remember.
As solar energy generating system.
It doesn't.
So we
Okay,
would
we
have
want to
to
amend
be
the-
more specific.
amend this motion
Right.
to, unless we want to just have to encompass the whole thing. So
So, no, I don't think we want to prohibit
nor do
someone
I.
from putting
Just putting it out there.
panels on their roof, but. and
I
so
think we want to exclude residential solar and however you want to word it. That's
Okay.
what we want to do here. We just want to concentrate on the commercial farms.
Yeah.
That's it, not residential. For
Okay, and I
residential
think-
use, we shouldn't encompass that.
And I think to Zach's point, and this is very easily done, I mean, we can say, you can approve this with the amendment that wherever we use the term solar energy generating systems, we say utility grade solar energy generating system.
Okay.
that's very good.
Can I make a motion?
You get that? So yeah, please, well,
Do you want to?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance establishing a moratorium on solar energy generating systems with the amendment of where it says
Utility grade.
use solar energy generating systems at a utility grade.
Second,
Okay, any other comments from the council? All in favor? All are in favor?
Like to waive the second reading?
Second.
All right, any comments? All in favor? All are in favor? Moving on. Items 013, consideration of council committee appointments, ratification of chairs appointments to finance and appointments committees. So looks like we're gonna, the finance committee is going to consist of Roy Weymouth, chair, Zach Steele, and Aaron White. The appointments committee is going to be Shannon McDonald as chair, and Linda and Andy West.
I'll move to
So
confirm.
moved.
I'll second.
Comments? All in favor? All are in favor? Moving on to items 014, discussion and consideration of town council liaisons to town committees.
Yeah, so our council hasn't changed with the last election, and so you all have committee assignments, and so if you want to just keep those, you could do that, or if you want to mix them up.
Open up for the discussion. Become six.
Consolidation ad hoc. Linda,
Yes, correct.
it's not included under the motion.
Okay.
Yes, on the memorandum it is. I don't have any concerns.
All right.
I'm okay with keeping it
Yeah.
just like it is.
I'll make a motion to keep them the same the way they are, if that's valid, so.
That's valid.
second,
All in favor? All are in favor? Move to items 015, consideration of December 2025 disbursement warrants.
Move to approve the December 25 disbursement warrants.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor? Move on to items 016, consideration of recommendations for the appointments committee.
I don't believe we have any, but we do have openings on the planning board.
So
We have applications.
So on your next agenda, you will have the option of appointing someone who has applied to the planning board. If you do that, then we'll only have the two alternate positions that will be open at that point. And then we've got some other I think reappointments for some other committees on the next agenda as well.
And can we just make sure that gets to Shannon now? Because I got all that info before. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. There are no recommendations for appointments at this time.
Great. Moving on, we're going to go to other business. Do we have any public comments now after the meeting? Go ahead, Dawn.
Slide this in. We have an alternate planning board member currently who has applied to become a full member. Brent McCarthy. In addition to that one new application, the gentleman's name is Dwight. And I have a question. The Recreation Committee, I know it's not been, is there intention? Is that something that's still on the radar? Is the town desiring
Let
that?
Anthony answer that.
Yes.
Ta-da.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, so I'm a little reluctant to talk about things that haven't been properly
Oh,
put.
thank you. Okay. Thank you. Any other public comments? Nothing online? Great. So moving on to the town manager report.
So looking ahead to the next meeting, which will occur on February the 2nd, I'm glad we have some planning board members here because they've been working on the zoning ordinance and they've addressed some amendments. I think it's like 7 amendments that they are proposing. They're all detailed in these hard copies. So the planning board chair asked if we would pass those out. We'll also be sending you a copy with electronic links to all of the information. But that's something that we'll have the public hearings. In fact, we posted today the public notice for the public hearings on this because it's we've got to do more noticing for a change to a land use ordinance than we would just a regular old ordinance like we did tonight. So take some opportunities to look at that, but that's going to come before you on the 2nd. Additionally, this is not a land use ordinance, but we have a planning board ordinance that just addresses the formation of the planning board, how it works, how it operates, and so forth. It was drafted in 1975, probably hasn't been changed since. We've got some updates to that, so we'll be bringing that to you as well at that meeting. And lastly, we will also have the second reading of the special amusement ordinance, which we presented at the last meeting. And so I sent you guys some updated language that worked the word reasonable in there in several points. If you have any other suggestions, questions, please let me know because we'll need that sooner rather than later because I'm going to be going on vacation on the 23rd through the end of the month. And so our plan is to try to get that agenda posted before I go on vacation if possible. So any initial thoughts about the special amusement ordinance? Okay. Just a reminder, Monday is MLK Day, so we will be closed on Monday. Yesterday, we went to our website training, and unfortunately, it was not as helpful as I was hoping it would be. And so we're going to have to go back and rewatch some of the training videos and essentially teach ourselves some of how to do what was done because it was just a blur. Everything was presented so quickly. And so now we're looking at potentially pushing the launch of the website back to the end of February, but we're not dawdling on that. Let's see. Oh, speaking of holidays, the second meeting in February is slated to fall on the 16th, which is President's Day. And so I wanted to see if you folks had a thought as to whether or not you might want to have it on the following Monday, which is the 23rd. I don't know when the Wayne Select Board meets. Would they be meeting on the 17th, Shannon?
Yes, they'll be meeting.
Okay, so let's not do that.
On the 23rd.
Other thoughts?
Available whenever.
I'm good with either.
Okay, well, why don't we say the 23rd then for that? Okay, very good. Let's see. And then lastly, I'm happy to report that your town manager has earned the Maine Town Manager certification from the Maine Town and City Managers Association. I just got word of that last week. And it's not something I intended to do because I always thought that was something for people who are looking to advance their career in some form or fashion. And I'm hoping whatever run I have left as a town manager will be here in Winthrop. And so, but I had a peer who told me it makes you a better town manager, which in turn helps you to better serve the community that you serve. And that was very appealing to me. And we also get a little reduction in our public official liability insurance, which is another little bonus. And so I was surprised when I got word. I went to look to see who else was certified. And so there are only now 26 of us across the state who are certified. So I feel pretty
Good
good about it.
job.
Congratulations.
And that's the town manager report.
Great. Thank you, Anthony.
One,
Yeah, so we go to the council comment. Go ahead, Roy.
where do we stand on have we done anything with the YMCA building, rec building?
We have not. So Kevin Doyle went over there and took a look and thought that we probably needed some more robust specs for that project. And so I'm waiting for him to give me those so that we can put that out to RFP.
Zach?
I just want to thank the planning board for being here. We appreciate you guys' input and in your effort, and we understand that, this caused some extra work, another meeting, right? So, and I just want to thank you guys for being here. And then secondly, the first meeting in February is on the 2nd, right?
That's correct.
I will try to be here, but I may not be here. So I just kind of wanted to let the council know. So,
And so as we're not remiss, we also have a couple of our comp plan committee members here as well tonight.
Wonderful.
thank you as well. So sorry for missing you.
Did you have something? No. Okay. Aaron, you good? Linda, you all set?
All set.
Great. All right.
Move that we
Take care.
adjourn.
In favor? Thank you, everybody. Closing the
Good
meeting.
night.
Night.